So I'm going to open the meeting at 5:32. Call the meeting to order, and then now we have the consent agenda with previous minutes, policy second reading, policy first reading. How about the minutes? How do you feel about those? Okay, Kevin makes a motion to approve minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Tobacco prohibition policy, you guys, and the professional learning policy, did you take a look at those?
So you have a couple there. So
Yeah.
you have, under second reading, you have tobacco and wellness.
Oh, yes, you're right.
And then you have
Wellness,
several
and then
under first reading.
correct. So let's do the second reading ones. Tobacco and wellness policy. How does the board feel about those? Any changes, suggestions? Or do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Perfect. So I have a motion to approve the second readings. All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Okay, so let's go to the policy first readings. Professional learning, family and medical leave, board commitment to non-discrimination, alcohol and drug-free workplace, and health insurance portability and accountability act. If you read through those, any suggestions, comments, or a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion for approval.
Okay. No more discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so moved. And approved. Okay. So now, do we need a prioritization of agenda? Does anything need to be moved in different order?
No, we're good.
Okay, so recognition of visitors. I see we have visitors, but I also see that they have their own slot in the agenda.
do.
So are there any other visitors that need to be acknowledged? Nope, going once, going twice. So now let's move to Sergeant Lynch and Deputy LaVere. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us.
Sure.
My name is James Lynch. I'm a sergeant with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, currently assigned as the resource officer at Enosburg Falls and Midland High School. I've been in Franklin County now for about 17 years. Spent the last 6 as a resource officer down in Enosburg. My friend Andre can introduce himself and his accolades.
My name is Andre LaVere. I'm a retired federal agent. I was former chief inspector with the U.S. Marshal Service, and I've been working, prior to coming to Richford, I was the SRO at BFA Fairfax.
This summer, Andre and I attended training at the Vermont Police Academy called LEAD. It's an acronym for Law Enforcement Against Drugs. It's a program that was set forth by the Mendez Foundation out of Hillsborough County, Florida. The family made a fair amount of money hauling rubbish and had a substantial social mission and got into the drug abuse resistance sort of a part of public outreach. Since a picture is worth 1,000 words, I'd be happy to show you a video that's produced by LEAD, and we can share it together on the screen. I've got about 7 or 8 slides pursuant to the video, and then we'll do some questions and answers, and we'll go from there. We'll see where this goes.
So important for the community to understand that the program that's being offered by their agency affects behavior and makes a difference.
LEAD provides an opportunity for a police officer to be in the classroom. It builds a partnership between the police department and the students.
I know what the drug situation is in America. The solution to that is LEAD. It is a proven, effective, evidence-based program for law enforcement.
When the officers come into the classroom, the kids look up to them and they can't wait till they come back the next week. When we're teaching LEAD program, that is their favorite part of the day.
We want the kids to be successful. That's the name of the game. That's what we do as police officers. You know, it's in our makeup, it's in our blood, it's in our DNA.
One of the best things that LEAD has done is bring communities together. Police, education systems, parents, teachers associations, it's a group effort. Rather than trying to have one officer do an entire campus by themselves, we bring in an army of officers who partner with an army of teachers. Everyone has fun, the classes are very interactive, and I just see the smiles on the officers' faces, the teachers' faces, but most importantly, the kids' faces. It is the only 10-week, evidence-based K-12 program taught by law enforcement, and it works.
I can't think of any reason why a district wouldn't want to implement LEAD.
Evidence-based, proven effective, the kids respond to the program.
It's all about the kids. That's why we're here, right? Changing communities, making a difference.
We think it's probably the most exciting prevention model we've ever taken on. We have such a crisis with opioids. We have such pressure on kids. I can think of no more important thing to do in our school districts today.
We are all going to work together so that we can solve this problem. LEAD is the answer.
These children have the right to an effective program, a tested program, something that's going to save lives.
At the end of the day, it's all about the kids.
It's all about the kids.
It is all about the kids.
I am really excited. Hillary Clinton is here.
My big brother David, for those of you who are wondering.
Everybody heard about the DARE program, and I'm sure the educators know that for a while DARE was unsuccessful with the research, etc. This is the new DARE. Actually, DARE is revamping also, but this is the new approach, and basically supplementing DARE at this point.
Right. I've done a few of these presentations at our school in Enosburg. The students remember me from the Vapes of Wrath, the red badge of road rage for the driver's ed classes. Stephen Crane. Okay. LEAD and Too Good, thank you. And Too Good for Drugs, www.leaddrugs.org. LEAD is Law Enforcement Against Drugs. It's a nonprofit 501c3 organization supported by dedicated police officers committed to protecting our youth and communities from the proliferation of drugs, drug-related crimes, peer-to-peer cyberbullying, and violence. We achieve our goals by collaborating with educators, community leaders, families, and LEAD support organizations. Too Good for Drugs. This is the LEAD program. This is how it's broken down on their website. It's a 10 consecutive week curricula. Lessons 1 through 5 include subjects like positive peer relationships, active listening, responding to peer pressure. When I sit in the principal's office with students at Enosburg and there's an issue that we want to address, there's a part of that conversation that goes a little like, well, what can you do to help yourself in that situation? And invariably, these kids come up with a couple of suggestions. Number one is, I can fight the other kid, or number two, I can avoid going to school. But there are so many other ways to address issues like that they don't have any concept of. Those are the two real quick and dirty go-tos, and lessons 1 through 5 deal with how to build positive relationships, how to reverse pressure, how to make better choices, how to make excuses as to why you don't want to get involved in illegal activities. Lessons 5 through 10 are the more intense ones. They talk about things like drug addiction, what marijuana does to you, what cocaine does, things of that nature. But that subject's never really broached until you're halfway through the program, after you've built some skills up during the first 5 lessons. Lessons are available in grade levels kindergarten through high school. That is to say, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade are in one block, but it's kindergarten through 8th and then the high school years. All lessons are scripted and are grade level appropriate. During the week that Andre and I were at training, we were given scripts, and those scripts were to be kept to, so you are sending out the same information in Enosburg, Vermont as they're getting in Manchester, New Hampshire, places like that. So it's all very, very rigid in the message that they want to send through this program. Each lesson is approximately 55 minutes long. There's usually 20 or so minutes of the actual following the script, and then there's another 20 minutes or so of an activity of sorts where there's a worksheet, or there's brainstorming, or there's a game or something like that. Role-playing, little vignettes, if you will, and things of that nature. During the course of those 55 minutes, the teacher in that classroom is required to stay to manage student behaviors. It's not a prep period, it's not a break time. The expectation is the teacher will stay in the classroom to make sure student X, Y, or Z isn't acting up. And
many school districts throughout the country have sent their teachers through the training along with the law enforcement officers.
Right. It's Orange County, Vermont has a pretty robust group of officers who do teach lead, and the school board over there seems to be pretty favorable toward it. The proposal for Enosburg, I wrote this probably maybe a month and a half ago, would be to present this material to 5th graders who are moving from the 5th grade to the middle school, and the 8th graders who are moving from the middle school into high school. Our training, mine and Andre's training, is already paid for. We've already been to the school. Andre and I already get paid to be here. So there wouldn't be any extra expense when it comes to that sort of thing. The curricula is something that you have to buy through LEAD. As you can see, it's for 5th graders, it's $347.50 with enough materials to cover 60 students, which I thought was a pretty decent number of students who might be in the entire 5th grade at, let's say, Enosburg Elementary School. Might be a few less, might be a few more, but it's always good to have extra. And the same for the 8th grade at Enosburg Middle School. The cost is part of the game, and that's how they keep their organization afloat. That's how they make sure that they can keep all their materials copywritten. They can afford lawyers and things of that nature to protect their investment. They've come a long way in the amount of time that they have been in business. Additional costs may include pizza or ice cream at the end of the curricula party and presentation of certificates of completion.
It is a sequential program also. I mean, it's just not 5th and 8th grade. There's a particular, it goes from 5th to 6th to 7th, and it's a progressive. Ideally, it would be for all the middle school grades,
right,
5th through 8th, but this is our proposal at the moment.
And in our position, the more classes that we would be assigned, the less time we would be available as the resource officer, right? There would either have to be someone available to take serious complaints at the school while we're teaching, or we would have to break away from what we're doing in the classroom and deal with that particular complaint. So there's no curtain to pull back. We want to be completely transparent on what this thing might look like for you guys, and what our responsibility would be while presenting this program. The other cost, the cost that we didn't mention before, interruption to student learning. And is there an agenda? Is there syllabus, thank you very much, that teacher is using, wherein one class a week for 10 weeks would derail whatever they're trying to put across to their students. There is the expectation that the boards for the schools will inform the parents that your school is now offering a program that deals with things like peer pressure, positive peer relationships, drug use, abuse, and addiction. And how you're going to balance that information with the current attitudes and laws, especially our laws in the state of Vermont specific to marijuana. It's going to come down, and I'm reasonably certain about this, that when the legislature meets up, they will come up with a policy that allows for the legal sale of marijuana in the state of Vermont. And I think part of the money that is put forth by those sales will be, in one way or another, used toward a program to educate students about use, abuse, and addiction. And I think the further ahead of this we get, then we're that much closer to what the state of Vermont expects. We'll get there, and I think the legal sales of marijuana is just around the corner, and the taxation of that will result in a certain amount of money set forth for education, especially as it relates to use, abuse, and addiction. I think it's a solid program. I hate to use the term propaganda, right? And I don't want to frighten kids into thinking that the first puff you take off a cigarette leads you to dereliction and in and out of jail, the pathway to prison or whatever. But I would like students to have some skills. You know, I'm tired of listening to the kids in the principal's office say, well, I can fight or I can not come to school. And there's so many things in between there that I think we can work on, and I think we can help out with.
Yeah, just to share a quick war story, is we had to teach at the Rutland Town Schools. And I know I had some time in the empty classroom before the class came in, and I was looking around the classroom, and it was literally, the walls were littered with what students need to do to make good choices, and it's the same thing we were teaching. So there was a lot of meshing there. We were all on the same page with what the school was doing and what we were presenting.
So your presentation, you said that 5th and 8th grade, and that would be both in Richford and Enosburg, correct?
Right,
Yeah,
because
okay,
we're
Richford,
assigned
right, okay.
Enosburg.
And then the cost would cover both buildings, correct?
The cost would cover just one, would just cover
one, that's where
Enosburg.
I knew I was
Right.
hearing Enosburg, okay.
Yep.
So I want to jump in there if
Yeah.
I could. So Jim and I first started talking about this, I think it was last summer. The first time we talked about leave before you went to the training. And so we only had Jim who was trained in lead, and until recently when Mr. Levere moved to Richford, we didn't have a lead instructor for Richford. So now we're fortunate that Andre is coming to us with that certification, so he has the capacity to do this in Richford. So it's really something that we could do in both communities.
Okay.
So I know that, you know, the presentation,
Right.
Jim, I think, was hoping to present this in November, and we weren't able to make that happen on our board schedule.
Okay.
But when he was thinking he was presenting this was before we knew that he was
Okay.
going to have it.
Right, yeah, because I wasn't sure if we would, because you had mentioned Enosburg
Right,
a couple
yep.
times, so I wasn't sure. So that's good that you have the capacity to do it in both places.
In my past life, I had a lot of experience doing budgets and worrying about budgets and preparing budgets, etc. So I know money's always an issue. I must say, I can't speak for him, but I'm a little embarrassed to say that I didn't do any research prior to see if the Department of Education has any funding or if there are any grants available. So that's something that we'll look into in the very near future. So I apologize for that, but
I almost feel like 60 might cover a 5th grade of both places. Roughly. I mean, it would be close, but it's not completely out of the ballpark.
41.
Yeah.
Yeah, 41. It's your big class. Do you want to?
So I got 2 questions.
Okay.
And pardon the pun for the first one, but where's the evidence?
Where's the evidence?
The video said there's evidence-based.
Right.
And I was just wondering, what they had for evidence, whether it was before and after, and how they came up with that.
I think there's a lot of just relational evidence. Students who have gone through the program and who've graduated, and the rates of delinquency or whatever, and trying to compare the two, those rates have decreased. I think the folks at LEAD would be better prepared to give you actual numbers if that's something that you're looking for. But I think most of the evidence, as opposed to being empirical, is more or less relational. Like they've gotten testimony from graduates of the program.
Okay. And then, what was the basis of just 5th and 8th grade? Just
the transition.
To the transition.
Yeah,
period?
from school to school, and if we were to do all grades, then we wouldn't be policemen anymore. We would be teachers, because we would be teaching LEAD day in and day out. If there seems to be more of a need in the younger grade, then maybe the younger grade is the way to go. But judging by the training that we went to, it seems that the most popular ones are 5th and 8th, those transitional years.
Could you do more? Like if we decided to do 5th through 8th, would you guys be capable of doing that, you think? And still being...
I think our primary duties may be compromised as a result of that, because we would be spending a lot more time in the classroom than being in the rest of the school addressing issues that come up.
So do you think if we did 5th through 8th, your primary duties would be reduced anyway?
If we did 5th through 8th, then the responsibility for other members of our department to pick up the slack for us would be much higher.
No, I meant, do you think there would be as much of a need for somebody to be behind you
Would
picking
the
up the
kids
slack?
have enough of the skills to be able to not maybe need your services as much?
Difficult to say, I guess, and that is the goal ultimately, to provide education in an environment where students will be nurturing and care for one another, as opposed to doing the old fighting Irish thing. So I guess eventually there may come a day when that sort of education leads to a more peaceful educational environment.
I think one of the benefits that I didn't hear either of you say, but I certainly could see it myself, is that this would also be an opportunity for the students in our schools to see law enforcement in a positive light and see them as human beings, and they could see them as positive role models. Because we live in a society right now where there are some kids who have fear for whatever reason, or whatever is going on in their life, of law enforcement. I think this is a good opportunity for them to build strong relationships with the kids that are in our schools, and especially as it's a big year when you transition from 5th grade into the middle high school in both of these communities, and then it's another big year when you go into the high school. So, and I don't know, in terms of adding, I think we're looking at this as the proposal is about starting somewhere with this, and the hope was to try this out at 5th and 8th grade so that we can kind of look at the outcomes from the kids in those groups. And each year it would be 5th and 8th grade, so by the time a child would be through middle school, ultimately they'd have it 2 of their 4 years. So was the hope.
My thinking is that I'm not, the fiscal cost doesn't worry me. My question is, it's a new thing to fit into an already packed curriculum, and so I think if we were to insist 5th through 8th grade, I can guarantee you that at some point it would fall apart, that there would be grades not getting a curriculum because we would be trying to cram in 10 lessons for 10 grades and an we already are beholden to state and district core and curriculum. And if we don't hit certain measures and instructional goals with students in math and language arts, we will, and now science, we will see that reflected on state and national tests as well. So I think it's a really important curriculum, and I appreciate that your approach to rolling it out is starting with a small bite, and maybe we see how manageable that is and where it can best fit in our scope and sequence now, and then go forward from there.
And yeah, for the sake of being redundant, we're presenting it now because it's coming down the pike. If you read what the marijuana law says, there's going to have to be a preventive educational aspect to that. So it's just it's one of the reasons why we're presenting it now. So that you have time. Well, go ahead.
Interestingly enough, though, when you first started, that's exactly the plan you and I talked about, not knowing what Enosburg was thinking. We talked about 5th grade and 8th grade, the exact plan.
I didn't want to take the liberty of saying that. It's up to you. So.
You mean to tell me I worked on this and you guys?
Yeah, grades 5 and 8 are important transition years, and I also support the officers providing education and being seen as support people rather than punishers, because our current policy on substance abuse leans heavily towards support versus punishment. So this would be consistent, their involvement in this educational process would be consistent with our current board policy on substance abuse.
What are they doing in Orange County?
They're doing schools in Randolph. They've got a school, I believe, in Thetford. They've been in to lead for, I guess, the last few years. The sheriff over there is a gentleman named Bill Bonyak. I went through the police academy with Bill. Very much supportive of his officers and their efforts in the school. They do not have a resource officer program over there. So they pull their guys off the road and make this happen. So
What grades are they doing? Are they just doing 5th and 8th, or are they doing other grades? You know?
I think they're doing all of them.
It seems to me that they are doing more than just 5th and 8th grade, but I can't speak to exactly which ones.
Do you anticipate collecting some data to show the effectiveness of this investment?
I don't know how you'd measure that.
That's what I'm wondering. It's hard to measure a dollar well spent. But I'm wondering if that might support your cause, if you can show some type of evidence in the future.
You're not going to see immediate. You're not going to see behavioral changes. With students, helping them with make good choices, etc. We're limited in terms of what we do during the day, and then that applies to you as teachers. It's the home environment that where change is real effective.
You should see a reduction in your office's referrals. You might be able to at least look at that.
Right, yeah, and I think you're right that sort of evidence would support either enhancing the program or making a determination that it's just not what it was cracked up to be. And either way, it's at least we would have done something to get some information to make a determination.
If you could share if they have some research, some journal articles potentially, if you could share them with us, that'd be really helpful.
Sure.
I made that note, and I'll get that to you.
I think the other thing that you can measure, though, is about student understanding and perception at the beginning and end of these units, because that's something you can get at. You can get at what are their attitudes about peer relationship, what kind of skills and strategies do they have. I don't know if there's pre and post assessment in this or not, but we could certainly get at that, and we could also get at, anecdotally, we could get a sense of the relationship piece and their response to working with you. And the hope is if something bad happens in their life down the road, they're going to have people in their school that they can go to for support and help and to talk to. And the hope is they would also look at Jim and Andre.
Well, that's already inherent in what we do. I'm still new to Richford, so I haven't established that trusting relationship yet with the students, but it takes time. But I can tell you from being at BFA, I had elementary school students come to me and want to talk about, hey, I called Mom and Dad, I called the police on Mom last night. Mom is doing this, Mom is doing that, or Dad is doing this. High schoolers come to me, my cousin's being raped by my uncle, what can I do? That's already inherent within our jobs, and I think I don't quite have that trusting relationship here because I'm still new. I've only been here a couple of weeks, and that takes months to develop. But that is a part of our job, and that's why we're here. It's just not for criminal activity, it's that relationship.
I can see that having a really positive effect on student behaviors. Once they build the rapport and they get more information on how they can handle themselves in a difficult situation. So I could see that to be really positive.
Well, students come to us all the time.
Right.
With, hey, what can I do about this? Hey, I had this problem, can
I think that the transition piece is the 5th grade. Like 5th grade's already going to, I don't think either SRO spends as much time in the elementary schools as they do in the junior or the middle high school and in the high school. So I think that that's an added benefit here is that you're building the rapport while they're still in the elementary school, and then you are an additional familiar face as they come up.
Great, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you very much for
Any other
having us.
questions? Oh, good, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to school spotlights.
So we're going to be focusing on Richford Middle School tonight.
Okay.
And
thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
So, looking at the data since I've been here, one of the things that we've noticed is that sometimes our kids have the skills, but they don't know where to apply them. So we've really focused on relevance, rigor, and relationships. That's the 3 R's here that we've really focused on. And so this year, there have been 2 projects. Well, there's been a lot of projects, but 2 recently in the middle school that have made me, that have really excited kids and made me think of the relevance. So I wanted to share a couple of them tonight. The teachers helped me choose which ones. So the first one is a project that Kristen Baker, she teaches 6th and 7th grade math, did with 6th graders. Our 6th graders are a particularly difficult to engage group. And she was having a hard time engaging, and she said, what do you think if I did a tiling unit? Because I really never understood area until I had to buy tile for my floor. Same with me. That's when I really understood tile area, when I had to buy flooring when we were remodeling a house. So she asked for all of us to bring in any extra tile that she has. Did it shut off?
No, just put up.
And when Nate is trying to help me, I'll outside, when you're leaving, a lot of the projects are leaned up in the main lobby.
Sure you're plugged in?
What?
You plugged in good?
Yeah, I'm plugged in. Oh, wait. Yeah, I'm plugged in. It worked before, it was all set up to go before the resource officers went. Push the question mark.
There's a question mark on there?
Have you tried unplugging it from your computer?
Yeah, I did. I tried it a couple of times. I think it's computer 1. Oh, there we go. Okay, good. So these are some pictures and videos that Kristen took in her classroom while the unit was happening.
your volume on your computer is muted.
First we need to figure out the area of like the board, and then we need to figure out how big like the tile were, and then we need to divide the area of the board and the tile together.
And that would tell you how many tiles you.
First we
She shut off too quickly when she was videoing the kids and some of them.
Okay, because like we did do that good because we have like a spacer special appearance and tile we're missing. It's not like perfect. Like I definitely probably would not want this at like my house because it's a little bit messy.
Okay.
But overall we did okay. I mean, it's in one piece.
It is in one piece. What was something you did do really well with?
Something we did really well is making them like. I think we did really well with like not cut ones, like just the full ones, like those ones down. Because really the only thing that we had problem with was the edges.
Oh, so, okay. So, you're saying like the whole tiles in the middle were easier to lay than the ones that you had to measure and cut on the outside?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what we did well with on our project was the tiling and drawing precise cuts with the ruler. You deal a lot of this stuff in what we
Did they have to cut the tile too? No, okay. That would be okay.
whole other lesson.
How to have fingers.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
What we'd be grabbing it and putting the mud down and just putting the tiles down.
Gail, what was your favorite part?
My favorite part was pretty much everything about this project.
That's what I like about this.
You liked it all? Cool. So my last question for you is going to be, how well did you do with the project, and how do you know how well you did?
I think we did pretty well. It's pretty clean. It's basically the lines are matched up. There could be some in here and there that could be fixed, but some spots we did forget to put spacers in, which probably wasn't the best idea. But so far, it's been pretty good.
And how about with your calculations? Did you have a lot of tile left over, a little tile?
We had just a little bit.
Just a little bit? And what do you think that says about your ability to calculate the area?
That just means that if we weren't to grab extra, then we probably would have had to take that. But we did grab a couple extra tiles, and that's what was left with a couple extra. because just in case they got broken, because someone broke down on accident, we would have more tiles of the same kind, so then we could replace it with that tile.
Yeah.
And, but we,
These are their finished products.
Did they get to design the shape and everything?
Yes, they had to design a shape that they wanted. Notice the kids were working in every picture.
we break it up into triangles and rectangles, and then we found the area for those triangles and rectangles, and then we got the area from those, and we added all the areas from triangles and rectangles.
Okay, you already saw that. I let you listen to that one again because you didn't hear it. I didn't have the speaker on. So that's a math project. And then the second project I wanted to show you is a little shorter, but Marty Vallander, who's our global citizenship teacher, does a primary and secondary source unit each year. And one thing I like about both of these units is the kids were so excited to show off their work, like to present the work. So he started with students, oh wait, is that the first one? I'm not sure if that's the first slide. Yeah. Okay, so the first slide was them going to the Historical Society down street to find out the difference between primary and secondary sources. And so here are the kids taking notes and down at the Historical Society. And then these were the standards that he addressed. And they, for the first part, he really scaffolded the project. So for the first part, what he did was had the kids look through this book. And then they, as a group, they looked at different events in Richford history. So this is about the baseball team that was very successful. This one was about the flood in 27. You can take a look at these if you want. There's more up there. One was on the explosion of Blue Seal Beads when it was Quaker Oats. So the kids like worked as partners or to create these. And then they loved this part. They went through the yearbooks from 1929 to 1998, and they chose people, and then they created a story with primary source documents, and then posted them. And the kids were very excited because in some of the pictures were people they knew. And they when I was going through, they were like, come and see. And so they're displayed in the middle school hallway, but they had a lot of fun. Like, this is me. And my prom picture was in there. And they did, one of the kids did, about the dress and how much it cost and the agenda for the evening and all their, there was a note to my boyfriend that was in there. So the kids loved it. They didn't assume my name, but there were relatives and different people they knew, and they got to create primary source documents. So it was engaging, and they really understood the difference, and they could demonstrate that by the end of the unit. So those were the two units that I wanted to, or the two things that I wanted to highlight tonight because of the excitement of the kids and the relevance of the learning. So Lynn, when you go to do this, I think that if this isn't touched just right, it doesn't show. Okay.
Thanks, Beth. So now we have Morgan's report.
So the first two items on my agenda are informational. We did receive a draft of the SU audit last week. I have only skimmed it. There were no findings, and I expect that that the other audits will start to drop pretty soon. So that'll be Enosburg and Richford individually that you guys will be interested in. I said that I was going to send out your financial report, and I didn't say when I was going to send it out, so I don't think it's late yet, but I will get that out to you.
Okay.
We're we're trying to get our agendas out earlier in order for Lynn to meet some deadlines and pieces that just disappear into the ether after I say, yeah, we get to that. So I'll get that to you. In terms of budget development, I'm just going to keep doing this reminder each time I remember. Board petitions are due January 27th, and the people that I think are running from this board are Rick, Mort, Pam, and Amy. What we've been told is that you need 30 signatures from your own town only, which is different from what we had heard the last time. We get more than 30 every year.
Like 60.
Like 60 is good. But 4 of the 6 seats are open this time around because 2 of those positions were appointed.
Oh, right.
So
They need to be
so they
run.
have to actually run for those seats. If you've got any questions on running, you can either talk to Billy Joe in Enosburg Town Clerks, or you can give me a call and I can track down information for you.
So to pick up the petitions, they should go to Billy Joe?
Town Clerks have them and I can download them and get them as
Okay.
well.
Oh, you can? Okay.
So coming around is your second look at your budget. There's still a lot of missing pieces on the revenue and tax rate side. You may have seen in the news that the tax commissioner dropped the December 1 letter, which sets the yields that we are likely to use for your budget. The yield is a number that's ultimately set by the legislature, but usually they do that in May or June, long after these decisions are all made. The yield amount actually went up, which will help to drive tax rates down. The commissioner sent out a memo at the same time telling everyone that their tax rate's going to go up 5% or 6 cents. We did a little bit of digging into that, and it's assuming that your ed spending is going up by that much, which is the number that the AOE said that it might be, whatever it is, 5.5%. So the tax commissioner said, well, if your budget goes up 5.5%, then your tax rate's going to go up by 6 cents. So that's a long way of saying I wouldn't put too much stock in his letter. You guys are still controlling a lot of that. But the yield is definitely gonna help rather than hurt. So in front of you, there's a thick packet and then an overview. If we look at the overview first, this is what will appear in your packets that go out to voters. It is the same format as we used last year. May have tweaked some lines a little bit here and there. But overall, it's roughly the same. We'll go through in a minute, school by school and section by section, what's changed since your last look at this, and also areas where I really haven't had time to sit down with the principals yet and finalize. But if we took and we warned this budget tonight, the overall expenses would be up to 3.6%. That wouldn't say anything about ed spending or tax rates because we still need to get your equalized pupils, which should come sometime next week, your CLA, which will come before the end of the month, and then you guys finalizing a budget once we have some ideas on revenues.
And you said up by
3.6. But again, I don't think you need to take too much stock into that.
Right.
Yeah. I will get the FY19 actual figures into this once we see the final audits, and then I will have the through December 31st expenses before we publish it anywhere. But it's probably not going to be anything that you guys see. And then there were a couple other couple other graphics in the packet that we sent out to voters, and we'll use those again and sort of to try to prepare them. In terms of assumptions on the budget, and we'll switch to this packet, we did just get the news today on the healthcare agreement. It is not great for your administrators. We had predicted that it was going to move everyone to an 80-20 premium share. That is going to happen. It looks like for your year-round support staff who are currently at 90-10, that transition won't take place for another 2 years, and then it will be gradually. So that's primarily your full-year custodians. So that impacts. As I read this, and this is just a recap of it, we haven't seen the final proposal, your administrators would all move to 80-20 from 90-10 right away. Currently, right away is July 1st, 2020. The legislature may punt that down the road. And so we'll have to decide which of those scenarios we want to budget for, and I haven't had time to come up with a suggestion.
I also saw in that little release that they said something about how employees that are 17.5 hours are now.
So if you're at 17.5 hours a week, you are eligible for healthcare coverage. That is what we've historically done here. It's not been the same across the state. The one difference is that the employer contribution to out-of-pocket costs, which would be either an HRA or an HSA, is not going to be prorated. So if you're at 17.6 hours, you're going to get as much of an HSA as somebody who's 40 hours. The premium gets prorated, but that part doesn't.
Right. Okay.
It offers an HRA for people who are on the Platinum, Gold, or Gold CDHP plan at an amount that's slightly lower than what you're currently offering in an HSA. And then you can get an HRA or an HSA if you're at the Silver plan only.
Okay.
So that's also a change, and that's going to be pretty significant for your staff because probably 95% of them are on the Gold CHP plan, and they all have HSAs. So they're going to have to decide whether to lose that or whether to go down to the Silver plan.
In the HRA, the money goes back, whatever's not used.
HRA is a promise to pay, basically.
Promise to pay.
You as the employer will pay up to $2,100 of their medical expenses in a given year. An HSA of the same amount is, here's $2,100 into this tax deferred account. You should use it for all your medical expenses. We don't want to know what they are.
Right.
You're going to take care of them. So this, I think this will have a big impact on your negotiations with administrators, both at the district level and at the SU level. I did some quick math, and Jamie did some quick math when this came in, and we both think that we would be ignoring any increase in the premiums, which we know are coming. Just the shift in health insurance is going to cost us between $45,000 and $5,000. So I would expect all your administrators who are paying attention are going to bring that up in negotiations. So, a long way of saying it's salary and healthcare is still well, that's SE. And it'll be a little bit firmer from January, maybe if we want it, but not really that much firmer, because we will maybe have one negotiation meeting with the support staff and probably one with the teachers. You may have your administrators lined up on that.
So all of those, well, yeah, no, okay, yeah.
So from the last budget out of this one, I've not made any changes to assumption on insurance or on salaries. There have been a few position changes here and there, but that's it. I also took a look at what each of the principals had budgeted for field trips, supplies, books, and software. And basically kind of combine them all together, came came up with a per pupil amount that each school is spending, looked at the one that was spending the most per pupil and pushed that out to all the budgets. We still have some work to do in Nate's budget because the tech center is different enough that it has to be a different set of rules. So those are probably gonna go up because of the grants and because of the types of programs he has. What I pushed out to principals, and I know not all of them have looked at it yet, was if the amount was $100,000, I said, I'm throwing 10,000 in field trips and 40,000 in supplies and 50,000 in technology supplies. You guys can move it around if you want to. You can do it now, you can do it as we move through the year. I just want to make sure that we have enough money there to cover those expenses. So that's kind of the quickie pass at trying to get some equity on some of the low-hanging fruit. And again, this total is 5% of your budget. People are what matters. So we will go through this, and we can go through as quickly or as slowly as you want. Page 1 starts with Enosburg Elementary. There have been no changes to staffing from the version that you saw in November. We may have done a little bit of tweaking on some high-cost kids who have extraordinary services but are not special ed eligible. And that's something that Michelle's version of meet about every week or every other week. We keep tweaking that list so that that may change again. Page 1, the first 2 sections are early ed, and then at the bottom of page 1 starts the regular ed budget. For regular ed, K-5, it's instruction first, and guidance and health, professional development, library, technology. Again, most of those are people-driven, so there hasn't been any change. Page 3, principal's office, and then plans.
Can I stop you just for 1 second? This came up when the other board was reviewing. So I know when people are looking at some of those budget lines, they're trying to figure out what is that. Make sure you look at the FTE line because that tells you how many associated people are connected with that budget line. And if you have any questions.
We had a principal who thought they were getting a ginormous raise because they didn't know that their admin assistants was
in there?
In the same.
Oh.
It's the office.
We brought
Yes,
him
exactly.
We brought him or her down here.
Pop that bubble.
So in the middle of page 3 is the plant section. This is one where I've not tried to do any comparison school to school on things like fuel, oil, and electricity, and those types of supplies because the buildings are so different. I've done a pass through there and kind of moved all the budget items over from the previous year. If there were expenses that seemed way out of whack, I started to adjust those, and I'll kind of keep cycling back through that as we get closer to January and we get a better idea of what revenues and tax rates are going to look like. Field trips comes in. Extracurricular after-school program is in here. Page 4, we get into special ed, which is your para-educators, because your teachers are at the SU level. And then the athletics. I've not spent a lot of time on athletics, and so when we get to the 2 high schools, that's a bigger deal. For the elementary school, the budget amounts are fairly small. But that's an area that I will circle back to. Bottom of page 4 starts the middle high school. Again, direct instruction is first, which is where all your classroom teachers are. Then your student support, guidance and health, instructional support of professional development in the library. Bottom of page 5. We get into technology. Top of page 6. Principal's office and plant. High schools, you have your lines for your SRO under security. couple of these small lines like vehicle operation I need to get back to and see if we need to budget anything or more for that. Top of page 7, looking to extracurricular activities. At Enosburg High School, you have the capital construction debt, that bond payment, in the middle of page 7. And at the bottom of that page, you get into special ed in your athletics department. In terms of humans, no changes to the FTE from the version that you saw in November. Richford Elementary starts at the bottom of page 8. Again, the first 2 sections are early ed. And then on page 9 is the K-5 section. There are 2 adjustments tucked in here from the last version you saw. We added a classroom teacher for 3rd grade, and we added what we call this person, social, emotional.
So we're looking at like therapists, social, emotional, depending on what we actually get hired for. I did ask Morgan to look at, what that might actually cost. So looking at next year, how are we meeting some of the most severe needs of some of our kids? We're trying to do some programming around that and develop some programs within the school that will help to also meet some of those real extreme emotional needs of some of our kids. So whether it's a therapist or social worker, like I think we need to feel out what the program is really going to look like, and then what is really out there for a person to look like. You have to look at your applicant. Yeah, that's going to drive. Yeah.
And so if you compare this to last month, there should be an increase of a person on that salary direct instruction line. First one after the break on page 9, and then one for now I've put under the guidance department, which is that second section.
So there's a decrease of salary, you said, or increase?
Overall, there's a decrease, and that.
Yeah, right, and then an increase.
And that's primarily because we had 2 teachers who were actually at the high school in the elementary school budget. That we missed at some point, but I missed at some point. I think it was a holdover from when we moved 6th grade. Bottom of page 9 is health. And then page 10 starts the instructional support section, so professional development, library, technology, and then the principal's office, bottom of page 10, and plant going from page 10 to 11. Then we've got field trips, extracurricular activities, and then we get into that's a little money to go for summer school. And then the after-school program down at the bottom of page 11. One thing that I did not try to do, I've not made any changes to the previous year in terms of the contribution to the after-school program. It's a conversation that we can have, or the principals can have. They're all in very different places, but it's just not, hasn't risen to the top of the heap yet. That's on your budget. Top of page 12 is your special ed educators, and then the athletics department, which you can see I need to get back to for the elementary school. Bottom of page 12 starts Richford High School. There are no changes to personnel from the version that you saw last month. So that first section is direct instruction. Page 13, we go into the student supports, guidance, and health, and then instructional support. professional development library tech on page 14. Principal's office and plants. Bottom of page 14, you'll see the SRO. There's a big jump there. I don't know if I talked about this last month, but Richford had, it was in year 5 of a 4-year grant last year, which had covered a good chunk of the cost for your SRO. This year, we had signed a contract that kept the same amount with the outgoing sheriff, who I think wasn't tuned into after the grant had gone away. So we've got, we're going up to true cost for next year. And it's a big increase, but by all rights, you should have had that increase this year, so you got a little bit of a break there. Field trips, extracurricular, summer school, and then special ed and athletics. Again, as I go through this, there are a lot of sections that are going to be changing now with new personnel coming as well. And so generally, we will assume that you'll hire for less money than you replace someone, or you might win some health insurance. So I'm probably going to advise you on folks that we know are retiring to just leave it in as if they were coming back. It's going to work out.
Right.
There may be more insurance and less in salary, but that's how it goes. Bottom of page 16 is the district-wide expenses. So that first $4,000 line is estimate on pre-K tuition. And then top of page 17 is tech center tuition that you're paying for kids who are accessing the tech center at Maple Run. Professional development is for board training, and then that section in the middle is your salary, legal, a lot of the insurance costs. I've basically brought over the SU assessment at the same amount as it was last year. That budget has not been set yet, so that could go in either direction. The percentage that Enosburg-Richford and Northern Mountain Valley has of the pie is the same. Those of you that have been doing this for a while, that percentage when we were 5 individual districts tended to swing a lot based on student numbers. It happens to be the same this year, so I don't see one side getting harmed in that. Your plant costs are in there for the cost of the Monteith House, which we have not had to pay this year.
Where is that one?
Bottom of page 17. Page 18, at the top of that is your transportation assessment, which at this point is also a guess. Debt service is your short-term loan interest. That's one I'm hoping is a little bit high. And I'll talk to Franny and see if we can bring that back down to what we had last year based on where this year's going to end up. And then your special ed assessment is that big number in the middle of page 18. And again, that's one that will have some clarity, I think, next week at the SU meeting, although I would, at this point, be surprised if we know what the assessment is. Cold Hollow starts at the bottom of page 18. Adult ed is first, and I've done nothing for that yet, so that's all zeros. Direct instruction is at the top of page 19. No change from last month, and again, that increase is due to a staff member no longer being eligible to be applied to the Perkins grant. So that's moving to your local. Guidance for student support, and then professional development for instructional support at the tech center. And then you've got the director budget and the physical plant at the bottom of page 19. Some transportation costs, and then that rounds out the vocational section. Nate and I will be talking about pulling in the Perkins grant, which is something that we did not budget for last year. And once we start seeing some revenue pictures, we can talk about doing some of that again. That was something that we went back and forth on a lot last year.
So the expenses up 3.6, like the places that you haven't tackled, like athletics and those, is that number not with this?
That number is not with that. It's going to be a pretty incremental increase.
Okay. So the big step is covered,
yeah.
you're saying, okay. Okay.
Yeah, the big stuff is people. And then there's no revenue numbers that I have to share with you yet, but I wanted to talk a little bit about incoming tuition. What I am thinking of doing is taking basically all your 9th graders and your 10th graders and your 11th graders, assuming that they all return, and that they're going to return from the same schools, but that they'll return in those same numbers, that you will get, I think, about 70% of the kids who are in 8th grade at the 4 northern metropolitan schools. And that seems to be roughly historically what you've been learning. So you lose some to Maple Run, you lose a few to MVU, and you lose a handful of private schools that are in there. So counting those for your 9th grade students. I'm going to take your 11th graders and say, or your 10th graders who are moving up to 11th grade, and saying a quarter of them are going to go to Nate's program.
Okay.
Because if they go to Nate's program, you don't get to charge high school tuition for them. So backing those out. And then I'm just backing out 10% of your 12th graders, figuring that either they're going to drop out or go to early college.
Right.
In both cases, you don't get to count them. I can easily be convinced that those numbers need to be pushed in one direction or another.
Right.
I'm wondering if the guidance directors have any sense yet of kids who are considering their own college next year. Do you know? Either of you know?
We can find it out.
I don't know. I'm just curious because I know that it feels like those numbers have been growing.
Yeah.
I mean, they would know whether they would have all their credits by the end of their junior year.
But, I mean, they may know just from the kids that they've been meeting with, even if it's rough, even if it's not, if you could just let Morgan know if there's a sense of about how many kids are talking
Yeah,
about.
and you do that through Power School?
Yes.
Is that how you, yeah, because
Well,
I think
student
that we
numbers.
have at least one kid graduating early this year, and if you're counting her as a junior, she's really graduating,
Okay.
so.
And the other thing that I don't know, because I just thought of it, is I need to make sure that I'm backing out your many exchange students.
Oh, right.
I don't think they're going to be caught from sending towns, but I don't know that for sure. Because you're not getting tuition on them, but I don't know if they're going to be in that tuition count. So, yeah, I'm happy to change that prediction with any evidence from Joseph, you, or Beth, or if you, the board, think that I'm off on any of those guesses, I'm fine with that.
You know the ratio of students from Sheldon that typically, is it 50-50?
It's been roughly 50-50. But you get all of Berkshire and you get half Montgomery. Montgomery's numbers swing quite a bit. So I thought about trying to do a kind of a prediction for each town, and I decided that was going to be too much work to get to the same number. But I can do that. When do you guys do your dog and pony shows to the 8th grades?
Next
Today.
Next week.
So if, I would be interested, I think primarily from you, if you get the sense that Sheldon or Bakersfield are gonna swing one way or the other, because they've been 50-50 between Maple Run. You know, it doesn't matter anymore to me if the Berkshire kids are going to your school or your school. So that number isn't as important to me. But Bakersfield and Sheldon are wild cards.
What if they can't do like some kind of survey? I think it would kind of help everybody out.
Yeah.
Sure. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like they could just do a poll of their 8th grade or something.
They usually do
Do
for
they?
us.
Yeah.
And it's usually a little further, like today was their first dose of things. They'll go to Richford and they do some like planning and
So by-
discussion
right.
and then they take a poll and we don't poll our kids.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm
They just
not,
go where they go.
I'm not convinced it matters.
No.
Because, you know, it'll be whoever was there last, and they're not yet thinking about the one kid who makes a decision early that everybody follows. So it
Right,
seems
right,
like
right.
They can tell me, you know, these kids are going there and there, but the percentage is usually.
We had about 88 kids show up today.
To do walkthroughs.
Yeah, well, they did a recap and all of that. It was the bulk of the day. It's a lot of fun.
It's safe to assume like if a sibling from Berkshire went to Richford, the younger ones, like there are some assumptions we can make, but.
So the good news is if that assumption holds up and your tuition rate stays basically the same, it'll mean more high school tuition revenue next year. And it's kind of feels like it's been a while since I've been able
Yeah, I was
to
gonna
Enosburg and say
say.
that.
I was gonna say we've been here
Drop it fast.
or since I've been on here. Let's get that way. Me either.
So, still an incomplete picture, but 2 bright spots I was able to give you.
Oh, wow. That was like thunder. Okay. Anything else, Morgan? Questions, anybody?
Questions?
Questions?
In terms of the book, if there's something different you want me to reference in terms of what's going out to voters.
Oh, yeah.
So the mailer that we did
Yeah. So.
6 months ago.
I know, we just did it. I know one thing I'm gonna do is highlight.
I was gonna say.
CLA piece,
So
so
we
it's
don't-
different.
And we're not gonna use anything that could be construed as an arrow anywhere.
Correct. Correct.
What do you take feedback?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So we'll, there's kind of a sequence to how we're doing this, and we have not had time to tune into that at all.
Right.
So you conceptually know what that looked like last year. We know we definitely all talked after that about the places where there might have been misinterpretation, so we'll take that on. I think that in terms of the communication piece of what went out, the letter was, I think, relatively effective.
Yeah.
The letter is how it was structured, so it'll be similar.
Right.
The principals are gonna be, we met, I don't know, was it this last week? Last week, when we talked about standardizing the principal reports, kind of like we're standardizing the board reports, so that when their annual report goes out of the book, this is different than what we're talking about with the mailer, but that there'll be some consistency between, they'll show the difference in the autonomy in each of the schools in their actual report, but the structure of how it's set up will be consistent.
We won't know people as pupils again for a week. It's a 2-year running average. And it looks like the year that's dropping off at a total of 1158 kids. And the year that's coming on was 1117. So it may be that we see a decrease in that. That's one where they weight every kid differently, so it's hard to predict based on sheer numbers, but I would expect that the raw number is average is going to drop.
Okay, sounds good. So now, principal reports. Kelly, do you have anything to add other than the list? Okay. Great, thanks. Beth, anything to add on other than what was in your report?
No, just one correction. Glenn Fleury is listed as our JV basketball coach because he was at the time, and he since has quit to coach his own kids at Enosburg Elementary School, so we do not have a JV boys basketball coach right now.
Okay.
So that's incorrect information. And I think the rest of my stuff in executive we're gonna cover later. Yeah.
Okay, and Michelle's not here, she's ill. And Rachel, do you have anything other than your information report? Joseph, do you have anything else? No? Okay. Nate, do you have anything other than?
Sure.
Okay.
I just want to highlight the FFA Wild Game Dinner on the 19th. So if you can find your way to Enosburg, December 19th, you need to come to Cold Hollow for the FFA Wild Game Dinner. It's a 30-year tradition. Students bring in their catch, their game, and cook it up and share it. So
Have lunch catch.
9:30 to 1. It's coming, like it's really worth the time. And then the other
back
thing.
to school, you should bring an extra set of clothes.
Yeah, it does kind of smell. And then the Monteith House, just going like, there's a lot of repairs that need to be done right now. Somebody on the board said that the board is going to pay for stuff, but it's coming out of my budget. So that is kind of tongue in cheek. But how can we pay for the repairs that need to take place there? I don't know if Morgan, you put something in there different for next year.
We can.
Or we can sell it, or we can give it to somebody.
So this was actually on my other business agenda, actually. I think we should look at getting rid of it.
I think that would be one. So, yeah, and we should, because currently, so for those of you that don't know, the Monteith House is owned as property that goes to Cold Hollow.
I'd like to say it's all of ours.
It's all, correct. Cold Hollow, you didn't even used to use it.
No, we don't.
No, not at all.
It was
okay. It's located.
Oasis
Yeah,
program.
Oasis
for
program,
several
right?
years. My first year, it had been in place for a few years, but then there were very few students, and so it closed down. And then it recently was rented to a community center.
Community center.
And they want it fixed, and it is expensive.
So the roof is going to get patched soon, and the ramp has been patched but not fixed. And it probably needs replacing. But
the handicapped ramp.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, there's a couple different scenarios, because currently it is rent-free, so either you start collecting or sell it, or, yeah.
Parking lot.
Right.
I don't know.
So we can sell it to town for $1.
That's not the
Is that-
worst idea of ours.
No, not with them. Parking on the street.
Yeah, I wonder if the town has to be willing.
Yeah, the
Well,
town,
they have
no,
to
the
be
town
willing
has to be willing.
But I thought that was part of the whole merger thing.
Yeah, I suspect you're right. The other wrinkle is that so Cold Hollow sits here, Monteith House sits here, property for sale here, and the price on that property is dropping.
Right.
And then you can have 3 buildings you can knock down and build one nice.
I think that was the purpose behind
Buying the Monteith
House
House.
to begin with.
Oh,
It's
okay.
increasing the footprint of what Cold
Cold
Hollow.
Hollow. Interesting. Okay. That shifts things. It would shift things.
There's enough.
Does that place need a roof?
Exactly. So I guess the question is, yeah, I guess all of those questions, at what point do you evict? Do you, until that's the plan, do you, when is the, yeah, I guess those questions, I don't.
Well, if we keep it, we gotta do maintenance.
Correct.
I mean, we're the maintenance.
Or when you renew a contract, that there is some kind of maintenance agreement.
Or a rental agreement that could
Or a
cover
rental
some
agreement that
things.
would cover some of those fixes. Because currently, right now, it's just any damage incurred by the leasee, which doesn't cover any significant costs.
I think you need a rental agreement where you charge them rent and then you leave, I mean, 'cause, you know, if you're gonna ask them to fix a roof or replace a roof and then boot them out in a year, that probably would not go over well.
No, that wouldn't go well. Granted, it's the same taxpayer. Oh, no, it's
No,
not
it's not.
anymore. My bad, exactly, I need to shift. It's not the same taxpayer. Correct.
Do we know what the estimated repairs are?
Right now, we're just putting basically flex seal around the roof.
So you're putting Band-Aids, but to do it correctly, is it 10,000, 25,000?
I'm not sure.
Which again, if that's not, if your long-term plan, it's not for it to stand, you probably wouldn't fix the roof.
Would you like me to put Monteith House on your board agenda for January?
Yes, please.
Yeah, good, yes.
So which property is it?
So it's, where, it is Cold
It's
Hollow?
Cold Hollow,
It's
yeah.
right there.
And then which one's for sale?
This one.
That one.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else, Nate?
Nope.
Okay. Superintendent Lynn Coda.
Well, I just had it, and as soon as Nate said he was done, I lost it. Is that bat making that noise?
Yeah.
Oh, should I push the power button again?
The power isn't on.
Morgan, do you remember
It takes
that
a minute for
property
it to know
that
once
it
it-
was offered? I think it's down.
Am I supposed to put it down?
Yeah.
Whether we have.
It was
It was
working
100,
perfectly.
it was like
until the
95.
resource officers touched it.
This is a different problem than you had though, because this is, So I'm gonna start, without the slideshow. So the first thing I wanna go to is a request from the Spanish teacher, Brian Garvey, at Richford High School for the board to consider approving, the opportunity for Richford High School students to be able to graduate with a seal of biliteracy. Last year, the Enosburg Spanish teacher came to the board and made the same request, and Enosburg approved it. We had one student last year graduate with a seal of biliteracy at Enosburg. So what it means essentially is there are proficiencies in Spanish, and if children are able to demonstrate proficiencies and they are really considered bilingual, they would be given that seal at graduation. So the request is, are you in favor, are you willing to allow Richford students to have that same opportunity?
I make a motion.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Very much so.
Okay. I want to talk next about negotiations. So at the SU board meeting, the SU board made the decision to task me with negotiating with central office SU level administrators. So I'm here to ask you to make a decision tonight about how you want to handle your Enosburg-Richford administrator negotiations. To make a decision, you typically negotiate yourself with the administrators. And at the SU meeting, you ask them to bring these to the 2 local boards to have this conversation.
Thoughts, feelings?
I think we negotiate for sure.
So, yeah, I remember we had kind of talked about that we negotiate this year and then maybe going forward, that it would be the end of the purview of
Okay. So that's the exact decision that the NMB board made. So you're all good with that? Okay. So when I wrote this afternoon, I went in and made some revisions to this, and under a statewide health update, I said nothing at this time, and it literally had my coat on and was leaving the building when this came through. So you should all have this. You should have something from the VSBA that looks like this. So Morgan went over this already to just try to give you a sense. This is a summary of the best and final offer that was chosen by the arbitrator today. They chose the union side of what was proposed. So take a look at that. If you have questions, don't hesitate to call one of us. Morgan would probably be your best bet on that. The last piece is about support staff and teacher negotiations. So we have our first meeting with the support staff, kind of the little group of the support staff, just to take a first look at goal setting, looking at setting some ground rules for our negotiations, creating a timeline about when we're going to be meeting as a council. And then we're going to talk about what are some of the priorities that they're going to be looking at, and are there some language pieces that we can advance in advance of us sitting down as a whole negotiation group, come to some preliminary agreement on it. So we're poised and ready. We have done our work to look at side-by-side comparisons. For those of you that don't remember, we have Sheldon with us now, and they were under the Franklin Northwest support staff agreement. As a result of the merge partway through last year, they were able to choose. So they already had a contract that they were under, a master agreement that they were under. So they took a vote and they chose to stay with their support staff agreement for the remainder of this year. There's no choice from beyond this point. They have to come to Franklin Northeast. So we're in a negotiation year, so we know that there are some primary differences between the Franklin Northeast support staff contract and the Franklin Northwest. So Morgan and I and Jamie have done pretty thorough analysis of the difference between the two, and we're ready to begin that negotiation process. So met with the principals, and I've asked them to give me some feedback about some things that they want to work on in terms of language in that support staff agreement, and we kind of know where they want to go. So I'm going to bring you into executive for a personnel issue later. And while we're in executive, we can go in for 2 reasons. Also, we should talk about negotiations in executive. It wouldn't be something we would do on the public meeting. So we can come back to that piece. Okay. So we're expecting teacher negotiations will follow right behind support staff. So we're hopeful we can do these in a timely and efficient way. So I'd like to save that executive session to the very end, if that's okay with everybody. I want to hand out a salary advancement list. We have a lot of people. I gave a copy to principals as well. We have a lot of people throughout the supervisory union who have met the criteria or are meeting the criteria for advancement in this next school year. So they had to give us that notice by December 1 of their intention to move. All of these people are the ones who have given us their notice. So you can see how many you have for each of the schools or each of the towns within your district.
So moving as in moving up a step, or
moving over a
column.
So they're moving like from bachelor's to bachelor's 15 or master's to master's 15. I think there's only maybe 1 or 2 that are making a double move. Most of them are just single I shouldn't say just, it's 15 credits. They're single jumps horizontally on there. So Morgan uses that when he's planning for staffing costs as well, because whatever the raise is, they would get that increment down and over as well. Any questions on that? The union also, in the master agreement, has to notify us by December 1st of their intention to retire at the end of this school year. And we have several retirement notifications throughout the supervisory union, and you're going to get a look at all of those. There still could be people that choose to retire, but this notification by December 1 is to get the retirement benefit that's embedded in your master agreement language. This is what we know for now. Morgan tipped that when he was talking about budget earlier about planning for replacement costs. Any questions on the retirement report?
We're losing an athletic director on each
Yes.
side.
Yes. And your principals are having a conversation. Yes. The intention was to have that last week, and they have not had a conversation yet. I don't know if it's possible to look at creatively figuring this out. It may be, it may not be, but they're gonna put their heads together. They're both in the room to talk this through. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. So this is, we know at the last meeting, Michelle Lucier gave her notice that she'll be retiring at the end of this school year as well. So I put together a principal search timeline for the Enosburg Elementary School position, and this is proposed, so this is drafted, you can take it. So my hope is, we know already that the candidate pool, there are not a lot of people that are moving into these leadership roles. As fun as all of these principals make this work look, these are really hard, complex jobs, and there are not a lot of candidates for these positions. So my intention is to move quickly on this. So we actually posted the position earlier today. You have, within Franklin Northeast, we've got our 2 districts. We have one principal on the other side who was hired as an interim principal, and the intention last spring was to reopen and do a full search. So there will be 2 searches going on at the same time. And I'm telling you that so that the end of the conversation will make sense to you. So this really lays out having this open from January 10th until approximately January 22nd, depending on how many candidates we get during that time. If we have a sufficient number of candidates in the pool, we would move forward with the hiring process. And I've laid out kind of the timeline and the order of things that we would do in terms of screening committee selection for who they're interviewing, screening committee interviews, and their recommendations to the board in terms of who should be finalists. So my hope was to move on this before the February vacation, because I know that there will be shifts in other parts of the state, and I just think it's wise for us to get ahead of it. We were in a situation where we were hiring later last year for both positions that we were hiring, and it made it challenging. So they're posted. We've already reached out to a couple of leadership groups in the state to see if they have any candidates that they think would be good quality applicants for us, and I've encouraged them to apply, so we're hoping we'll get some people there. So one of the things that I suspect will happen is that you're probably going to get candidates that are candidates in both Bakersfield and Enosburg Elementary School. So my intention when I looked at this was to try to get at, to try to get both of the interview rounds, the final interview rounds, done before the break. So I actually planned this for Bakersfield to be doing their finalist interviews on Thursday the 6th, and for Enosburg to do their finalist interview rounds on Friday the 7th. So it was purposeful in that if you have out-of-state candidates, they may be interviewing for both of those positions, and they could make one trip and come up for that. So it's kind of an aggressive timeline. It's a lot to do in a little bit of time, but I'm open to feedback if you think this is too fast.
No, I mean, your first step is fight to 22nd just to see what you've got. So that's kind of your first hurdle, I guess. I think if you had a good pool by the 22nd, then the rest seems doable.
So I have it planned for your next meeting that we'll be talking about kind of the makeup of the hiring committee, the screening committee, really. Okay. And I'll have a sense of what I have by then.
Right.
It won't quite be at January 22nd, but I'll be able to tell you how many candidates we have in there. Okay. So are we good with proposed timeline?
Yep.
Like I said, this is a draft. There may be some tweaks when I really get closer to it. Okay. I don't have anything else, but I did want to just point you to my last slide because this was really cool. On last week, Beth and Michelle and I were at UVM celebrating 2 outstanding teachers from Franklin East, and both are employees of the Enosburg-Richford Unified Union School District. So it was very fun. The FNESU Elementary Teacher of the Year is Lisa Robtoy from Enosburg Elementary, and Chris Hoyt was the High School Teacher of the Year for Franklin Northeast, and they also announced that he was called Hollow Career Center teacher as well. So.
I'm sure you did.
But it was a great night. It was fun to see our staff honored. I'm sure that we.
So Lynn, you want to do that executive after the board business?
Yeah.
Or before? Oh, after.
We could do it after. That way, I'm going to need to keep one of your principals, but I think after your board business, you can cut the rest of them loose.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So board business. First is the digital signing of warrants. I happened to stop by central office to drop off some paperwork. I stayed to sign some warrants, and
Yes, when I started.
they were already done. And so we had, she had been, is it Roxanne had been talking about how, because I had asked if we were to do it digitally, what exactly would we get, right? Because I know it might not always be easiest for everybody to stop in at the same time. And if you don't stop in, we don't see them because they don't get sent. So I know that you folks check them, but the rest of the So Roxanne was saying that the cover sheet and the itemization and the detailed checklist gets sent to sign up on. The whole packet except for the individual bills. Right? So the cover sheet, the list of all the checks, and then you know the packet afterwards that details each check and when it was, right? That gets sent to us every week. And then, so I said, well, what happens if you have a question on a particular item? She's like, then I take the actual bill and I scan it and send it to whoever has a question about that. So I didn't know how, I just want to check in again how easy it was for everybody for you to get there and sign them, or should we entertain digitally signing again?
I'm okay with it.
Okay with what?
Current state.
Oh, by stopping in?
Yeah.
So you're finding it okay to get there on that, or to get there every week?
Every 7 days.
Every 7 days? And you're feeling okay about it?
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday, 8:15.
Sometimes a little
Okay.
like structured as written, but I
Right,
I do
okay.
get it.
I just kind of feel out of the loop fact that we don't get to actually see those. And there's just no way that I would be able to get to central office on a weekly basis. So, okay, we'll just keep revisiting that one, I guess. How does the rest of the board feel about that?
But does she scan them in anyway? I might have to scan them in anyway, so you can look at them.
I don't think so. I think what she says with the NMB, she just scans it and then she sends it and they sign it. I don't think she would scan it if we didn't request it.
How long does it take for her to scan it? Okay.
She was kind of saying how easy and how well the NMB side is working. She's like, I'm able to do checks every week on the same day.
So it's more efficient for her.
Yeah, she definitely made that case that it was way more efficient for her. And I said, well, it would definitely be more efficient for me, but I am just one of many.
What's the downside of doing it digitally, other than staying with what you've already done?
So for me, I actually really like looking at the bills, the actual itemized things. And the other time, every time I go in there, I learn something that I didn't know before. So for me, it's just, I'm able to learn more things about the system that I didn't know before. And it's a structure, I have it every Thursday, I'm there, and I will not have the discipline to look at it
If they're not.
I just won't do it. I know I will not do it.
Okay. Is it outlandish to expect her to send them digitally but still have you guys sign them?
Well, that's what I was wondering if, how long, I mean,
Middle ground.
if it takes her hours
do
to
that.
scan them, then
Right.
it might not be worth it. If it just,
I would think there'd be a lot of scanning.
It would
It's
be.
probably not even a scan though, probably just save before you print.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
Turns
right,
it
right.
into a PDF that's already.
Yeah, right, no, exactly. Yeah, I mean, because I definitely don't want to make more work for her, but we definitely want to kind of streamline the efficiency of it. But as long as, I just, knew that when people get busier, it would be harder.
Or did you say you could look at the time, like how much, maybe put that on future agenda to revisit?
Yeah. Okay, both.
You want me to add that for next time?
I'll be stopping.
Just throw it on mine.
Oh, okay.
I've got it for you.
Right.
I take those Thursdays off. I stop.
I see, okay. Next regular scheduled meeting is January 14th in Enosburg. High School Library. Other future agenda items, anything pressing for future agenda items?
yes.
Please
yeah,
negotiate
monkey
with
pads.
us.
Monkey pads.
Oh.
Stormwater permit.
Stormwater permit, I haven't heard anything other.
Did you ask him to come in?
Oh, to come, okay, right, no, I did not.
No worries.
Would that be appropriate, or now, or should we wait till after budget, or does it matter?
I don't think it
Matters?
So I looked at the law kind of, and I think we
Yeah.
got till 2028 to get stuff. But I don't know if we need to get rolling to get some of the
Right.
grant money.
Okay.
Sooner if I,
Right, and I just have to figure out, is it Agency of Natural Resources that should come talk to us, or is it the grant people that should come talk to us, I guess?
I think the people that sent the letter.
The sent the letter, the
Yeah.
permit.
And I don't know if we use, if we need to use their people, our people,
Yeah.
their
I'll
engineers,
find
our
out.
engineers.
Yep.
Anything.
Figure that out.
The other piece that is going to now be pushed to January because we didn't get healthcare until today
Right.
is negotiations.
Right, so that's why I'm wondering, maybe we,
Or are you wanting to schedule something separate?
oh, another
Because
meeting for
you
negotiations.
You want to know that?
I think we had 13 and 2 of them retired.
10, ooh, 10, okay,
Because this is one you have to have.
so what we are going to need a separate meeting.
We're gonna do
Additional
these in
meeting?
2 bunches? Or we talked about that.
Depends, if you do them in 2 bunches, if you do them in February, then those will not be accurately reflected in your budget.
So we should do them in January.
If you want
Have
that
this
accurately reflected in your.
Special meeting. Do all of them at once or have special meeting?
Well, the other piece is some people are not gonna come to you. Some people are just giving you the proposal to give to you.
And if we say, great, fine, it's only if we need more additional.
Right.
How many people did we negotiate at once with last year? Do you remember? Anyone?
That day where they were coming in and out.
Yeah, I think there was like 4.
That was even more than that.
Was there? I only remember sitting down.
Well, maybe it was 4 people in person, but we
In person,
consider
oh, I see
more
what you're
than
saying,
that.
yes. Okay, so what's your pleasure, 2, 1? I think we need 2, I think that would be a long night. So potentially 2 meetings in January?
So if you want us to do a doodle poll, just see if we can pick a date for January, or did you want to do that right now?
Pick a date in January?
We should probably do it now.
Okay. For our calendars fill up. I know Mondays are not good.
Rick doesn't like Thursdays. I know that.
How about?
Maureen, when are you thinking, are we planning to warn the budget on the 4th?
Finalize our budget?
Be good.
What about, so you're just saying 2 meetings, so what if we had our regular scheduled meeting in January 7th, and then just had another meeting on the 8th, just the
14th is our regular.
Oh, right, it threw me off.
We could do the 7th
Oh, we could do the 7th for 1, and then the 4th, and have our regular schedule? What does the regular scheduled meeting look like? Is there a lot going on?
Warn the budget.
It's gonna be a big budget one. What about, somebody said Mondays are not good?
Well, every other Monday is not good.
Is the 6th not good?
6th is not good. Actually, January, every Monday I'll be doing budget.
And Rick, Thursdays you're still not.
Thursdays are good.
So does the 7th work for people?
7th works.
Yep.
Yep.
How about the 8th?
So,
NMD board meeting.
Oh. So,
Enosburg.
What?
You have it in Enosburg, if you want it, 4:30.
It's true. Okay, why don't you do 4:30 on the 8th?
It's a policy meeting.
but you could cancel if you, or you go 3:30 to 4:30.
I mean, we
I know,
mostly
I'm not out
Mondays.
loud. I am.
What time is
Or I could just be done in an
Yeah.
hour.
I said if you want.
Yeah.
I didn't say you had to.
So back to the 7th quickly, what time are you thinking?
I was gonna ask you what time.
Should we do 5, 5:30?
You're talking about the 7th?
The 7th,
5's okay with me.
5? Oh, you want to do 4?
I can't do
No.
it.
No, he knows.
No.
Oh, he's
I
pushing
know.
it. 5 is good. Let's do 5.
5 works.
Okay, and so now, let's entertain that 8. You want to cancel the policy meeting, or do you want to cut the policy meeting short?
Honestly,
or-
the policy meeting is not as much of a priority for me as this.
Okay, so,
What time's that?
so,
3:30. I mean, we still would have an hour if we met at 4:30.
so 4:30 on the 8th, is that a no-go for folks?
Which,
That's a hustle.
which of these 2 nights would you want to negotiate with administrators? I just want to make sure I put the right one in mind.
They're deciding
So-
that.
So the 8th, you
Both.
have an NMD meeting at what time?
6:30, but it's at Enosburg. So we
Oh.
also could tag team some. We
So if we
certainly got
started at
experience with that
5, is 5 still okay, Mark?
Yeah,
5, so if we
yeah.
started at 5, that will give us an hour.
Morgan, how do you feel about that on the night of another board meeting?
That means coffee and,
So, are we not having the meeting on the 14th, now
That's
we're
a-
gonna do back-to-back?
no, these are gonna be negotiation meetings, that's a budget
Okay.
meeting.
Wait, are you planning 2 negotiation meetings?
Oh, I thought that's
Yeah.
what
Right,
we were
I
doing.
thought we only needed 1 negotiation meeting and our regular
Oh,
scheduled
then
meeting.
the 7th, we're good.
Just the
I could
7th.
not figure out what you were doing, I'm sorry. I thought you were trying to like play let's make a deal. Is this
I thought we said we
No.
need 2, that's why.
I thought we needed 2.
Well, one being the
Don't
14th.
need
We only need 2 total meetings for the,
So we
okay.
can do it on the 14th also?
Right, like if you don't.
Man, I would
if you
not
don't
want to be
finish-
the 10th person coming in to negotiate with you. Just saying.
Or would you?
Or would you?
I actually would, because I feel like it sounds good. It's
Right.
more
maybe I do. You tell me if I
We're not
like
gonna
it.
attend.
You're not gonna have 10 people
10
coming in.
physical.
They've already given me the information about who's coming in and who's not.
So if we have one negotiation meeting, this, I think we determined the 7th at 5 works, and then we'll keep our regularly scheduled meeting on the 14th for budget.
And if there's something that we don't finish on the 7th,
We can
we can
finish
finish on the 14th. Because what we also could do, if we decide that we need additional time, that's a week away, we could warn that to be a special meeting, start an hour early and wrap up negotiations on the 14th.
Okay.
If we wanted to do that.
How
And
many
I'm putting you
people in?
10th on the list, just so you know.
10.
Great.
I will volunteer to be on the 14th, because I really can't make the 7th, so. Move me to the end of the line.
He wants to be the last guy.
He
I'm
does.
not necessarily last, but
spot. That's what I'm hearing.
Lucky number 10.
it is
We
what it
want
is.
to already in advance plan the 1 extra hour on the 14th.
What happened? Oh, that's 2%. Canadian power.
1 extra hour for negotiation on the
On the
14th.
14th, and meet at 4:30 to wrap up whatever we need to wrap up.
Are we gonna do all the budget stuff the same night?
You start at 5:30.
I think it's too much for me.
So maybe we should schedule the two. Maybe you do 5 PM on the 7th, and then you schedule, what did you say, 4:30 on the 8th?
Oh, no, 5 on the
5
8th.
So if you did 7th and 8th at 5, and
Would-
if you're done, you're done.
Would it help if we just said, none of the principals had anything on the agenda for the 14th? Just left it just the budget?
We didn't have anything on the agenda really for today.
Sure.
We do.
I don't know how much time the budget stuff will take, so.
So we're gonna
We'll
do.
we'll schedule both if that works for people, and then if we don't need the 8th, we can just put a sign on the door that says.
So,
Sounds like fun.
school board on the 8th, this is gonna be crazy. Okay. So, you'll clarify for us when we have to be there? Okay.
I will.
Oh, whoops.
Because I know who are.
I just put something in my calendar and deleted it and then added it again, and I'm just gonna wait.
I'll work on it tomorrow.
So the 7th and the 8th and the 14th. Boy,
Well, I'll say right now, you guys don't get paid enough.
you can sign my divorce papers. Because look, I got select board, school board, SU, school board, select board, every migrant. Okay. Right, so anything else that we need on board business? Anything?
Can I just clarify what you said for next time? So you want on your board agenda, Monteith House, electronic signing of warrants, stormwater permit. You want us to bring back information?
Correct, yes. And stormwater permitting, I will come back and let you know. I've talked with the person and when they're available to come and speak to us.
Okay.
Yes. Remind, oh no, maybe I should. When are we doing our informational meeting again? It's soon.
You're doing your informational meeting on February 20th at 6 p.m.
February 20th. I thought it was much sooner than town meeting.
No, it's 2 Thursdays before.
It's 2 Thursdays, okay. All right,
And when is town meeting again?
the 3rd of March.
3rd.
Okay.
And we might need to have 2 information.
Oh, we're gonna have 2. Oh,
So the other, I don't know if it was the other side or for the CS2 board at this point, but they talked about also engaging the community by trying to post the meeting live. They're using like new technology to be able to, have the camera going. I'm not comfortable. I talked to the VSBA and said, anybody else doing this? And they said nobody that they knew about. I'm not comfortable with it being interactive because we don't have to give any way of checking
And
the voter
right.
checklist stuff. But if you wanted to do something where there was a link, if somebody couldn't come out, if they wanted to hear, we can set that up.
Right. But we were gonna do 2 informational meetings.
I think that's, I'm not sure you ever decided that, but you definitely.
I thought we decided that we were gonna do that.
So you'll have an official one, and we have it in our office, odd years in one town and even years in the other, that's that Thursday. And then you can plan another one for another night in the other town.
Aren't we bound by some kind of calendar?
Right, that's what.
As long as you're within, yes, I found that, but it's much bigger than I
It's bigger
thought.
than, okay.
So I'm not worried about it. If you do it that same week earlier in Enosburg, so do we want to put that on? Either decide that now or put that on?
Put it on next week.
Okay.
The 23rd.
I don't remember.
6.
20 to 6, I should put that there too.
Do you know what year or what town we have this year?
You remember odd even? I wrote it down in my office, but I didn't bring it. I feel like odd years are Enosburg and even years are Richford. I think it's in Richford this year.
Because I think, that's what I
The last one was
remember.
in
But maybe it's odd months for Enosburg and even months for Richford.
I think Richford was this year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
We will. We'll talk about it next
We'll
time.
hold it at the school, like in Richmond to be here at the school. You know, I mean, in previous years, our town meetings were at the town hall.
Makes sense. To tune into that.
Okay. And any other board business? All right, so now do we have a motion to go into executive session to talk personnel? Then makes the motion. Oh, sorry, and negotiations, personnel negotiations. All in favor? So we're in executive session at 7:34.
So the only principle that I need to keep